Hello, it's me once again with a very quick overview of the things that you have for this upcoming week. I can't remember the number of the week off the top of my head, but you know what I mean. So, I'm here in the Writing Project 3 folder, and you will notice three new things. I gave you a sample essay for options 1, 2, and 3. These are essays that actual students of mine wrote last semester. They've all given me permission to upload them. I actually have one more request out for another option 1, so you can see another way someone addressed that. Please don't read these the wrong way. I don't want you to think, this is a perfect essay. I should do everything exactly like this. It's true, they were all A papers, but there are a lot of different ways to get A's, and some of them still have a lot of errors in things like format and grammar and mechanics and MLA and all those little things. So don't pay as much attention to that. Just use this as a way to think through, what in the world do I want to do for my essay? So, moving on, let's check out the detailed list of assignments just so I can walk through this really quickly. I'm partly doing this because you might scroll on down to week 12, that's what it is, and be like, holy crap, look at all this. So I'm trying to not scare you. You'll notice in the readings here, there's 4 things, but 2 of them are optional, and 2 of them have really long URLs but are actually very short. What I'm trying to do with these first 2, this Don Panek and this Sean Comer, I don't know, is they're both short articles to show how people are using online communities for some kind of social justice activism kind of thing. It's really just example essays to kind of inspire you and show you ways that people are doing exactly the kind of thing we're studying. There's tons more of this kind of thing if you just do some clever searches for things like online activism, what is online communities for justice, whatever. These last 2 are both a little bit longer, but I wanted to give them to you because there's a lot of people who have noticed that people are using online communities for these kinds of do good in the world purposes, and I think sometimes it's helpful to read the early theorizing people have started to do as they think about what's going on here, what is this movement that's happening. So those 2, at least skim them, but again, no one's going to come up and knock on your door and say, answer me what he said on page 2. None of that. This narrative writing one is here because your Project 3 essay is going to be very different style than the first 2 projects. Remember, you were writing the more typical academic essay, even though I admit that different departments define that differently. But so far, you've been writing fairly formal academic writing. Now, you're going to engage somehow with an online community, whether you create just write about one that already exists, or you create a resource for one, or you create your own, and you're going to write this reflective narrative essay about your experience. Well, that's a different kind of essay. I'm very purposely changing the genre here to throw you off a little bit. Well, that's one way to put it, but I like to think of it more as I'm challenging you to think about writing in another way. It's really a tendency of people to say, okay, well, I'm writing about an experience, so it's like a journal, so I'll just jot random things down. Jot, 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 jot. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. There's ways to still group your information together in ways that make sense to readers. You still want to come across with a strong ethos, things like that. And this very short little essay has some really awesome suggestions. I know it's really old, but there's not much to it. Then I have this interesting, awesome little thing on wordiness. You don't have to read it in complete detail if you don't want, but I would say at this stage in the game, writing the 3rd major essay, wordiness is the #1 thing that I'm going to be looking at in the style of your sentences. Drives me crazy. It's also the #1 problem in my own writing, as I'm sure you've noticed. Then I'd like you to take this quiz. It's from the same site. No, I'm not going to see your answers to it. It's not like you have to send in your answers to the quiz, but I do want you to try it because I think it'll be a helpful exercise to try to figure out wordiness in your own writing. Partly, I like this quiz because I think I've told you this before. There's research that shows when people are trying to learn things like style and grammar and punctuation, when you take like a quiz online where they give you some sample sentence that you didn't write and they say, where is the problem in this sentence? There's a lot of people who can ace those tests but still have really bad grammar, style, punctuation in their own sentences that they write. It's interesting how those use different parts of our brain. So this is cool because this gives you a chance to write something yourself. You're like, okay, let me try to blah 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 say here's what I think the sentence should look like, and then you get the version that they have, and you're like, ooh, mine wasn't quite as good as that, or mine was better than theirs, whatever. Very fun. Give it a shot. Um, Web design, you'll notice then in the technology section, I'm sending you to web pages that suck. This is one of my very favorite web design sites. You might say, why in the world are we even reading this? It's so random. Well, you remember part of what you're doing for Project 3 is actually analyzing the visuals of these websites you're going to, especially if you're doing Project 1. But for Project 2, you're going to have to write about what visual choices you made. If you do Project 3, you're going to have to write about what visual choices you made when you did your made your own community. So this is someone who has been looking at really bad websites for a long time and has a lot of really wise pet peeves of things that he hates in websites. So skimming some of these, again, I'm not going to quiz you on it, but reading some of the reasons that these websites are so bad, most of which are hilariously bad, is a really strong way to build up your own design intuition. I think a lot of you probably already intuitively know what you like and what you don't like in websites, but putting that into words is sometimes harder. So this is going to help that transition. Feel free to skim around other parts. This is just the worst websites of 2008. There's other years. They have different kinds of stuff here. The Daily Sucker, for example. I can't say it without laughing. Sorry. Then these next two are just samples. Especially if you're doing option 2 or 3, you might find these helpful. Lafora is a site that lets you make an online forum online for free, which you might want to do if you're doing Project 3. This one talks about Google Sites, which is basically a free site that lets you make websites for free in a pretty simple, easy way. There's 3 little tutorials here. I encourage you to browse through them. Might be helpful. Who knows? I'm just trying to give you resources. Then over here you'll see you have 2 forums this week, but really only one is a real forum. I want you to upload a scholarly essay to a Blackboard forum. That's not going to appear until midnight, Sunday night, Monday morning, but it should be fairly easy if you remember how to get to Academic Search Premier and those library databases. I encourage you to do this first. First thing before you do anything else, go start searching for this essay, because I think once you start doing your more hardcore research, that might change the direction that your essay actually goes. The second thing I would do is do this list of questions to answer about your topic. Again, I think once you start thinking through, ooh, this might be an interesting way that I want to move the way my essay goes, because then when you draft 2 of your essay, draft 2 already? Ah, yes, draft 2. Then you'll hopefully have some really wise things to say. You'll have already thought it through in the research you've done and the forum posts you've done, and then you'll just have to translate those informal thoughts into more formal essay. But again, like I said, it's not the most formal essay. So in one sense this is a lot, but in another sense it's not that much. I think the hardest things will be doing these posts, reading, well, the rest of this is all just short little easy stuff. Really, it's writing those and writing your draft. The rest is icing, and I like icing. All right, good luck.